Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves here with the 2025 RSJ Rookie Draft. This is no mock. This is the real deal. We stream it every year, and I'm coming live to just show you how it unfolds. It starts at exactly 7, so about 4 minutes or so from now, we will officially be live in the draft. But there have been, as often is the case in Dynasty Leagues, some major trades right ahead of draft time. Yours truly involved in one of them, the biggest Dynasty trade I've ever made in any league, including this one. So I'm excited to look at that. But let's first look at one of these. You guys can comment on in who you think the winners, the losers are, whether you're live with us now, catching the replay after the fact. Let us know if you think I got fleeced, other people got fleeced in these deals, and then we will, of course, launch the 2025 Rookie Draft, and you can see where everyone goes, get a sense of the ADP and who we are higher on, who we are lower on, and all of that good stuff. As always, too, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have as we go through this as well and break down our own rookie drafts, but happy to break down yours if you have any questions, player X versus player Y, this dynasty trade, any of that good stuff. But let's dive into this first rookie draft trade here. And as we're getting into this too, if you enjoy what you hear at any point, whether you're live with us or the replay, that thumbs up button, the heart button, the shares, all that stuff really does mean the world to get us out to more people. So thank you again in advance for helping us there. I know my man Tanner is on his way home from work, and he should be joining to help me break down all of the action tonight as well. But let's look at this first trade. So Mr. Duckworth, the Duck himself, lands Nico Collins and Ben Sinnott, giving up 2 first-round picks, the 106 and the 110, to Jimbo Slice. We could even kind of look at, well, I guess now the rosters are after that because Jimbo Slice is also involved in a mega deal. And his situation, just to kind of explain where he was coming from, had a lot of aging vets with maybe a year at best. It kind of went all in, had very little draft capital to do so, and didn't quite clinch the title either. And now is at the point where it's like the Travis Kelce's, the Derrick Henrys of the world were on his team. And so he's just trying to restock the cupboard, get some draft picks, and he's got 2 deals in a row. He might have the whole entire first round tonight. We'll find out in a second. But he sends away Nico Collins, so not one of the few non-aging vets on his team, really a stalwart in Dynasty. And then Ben Sinnott, which, it was very high draft capital last year. I'm not closing the door on him. We've seen Cliff Kingsbury do this before with Trey freaking McBride, the number 2 tight end in all of fantasy, in Dynasty, redraft, whatever format you play. It's Brock Bowers, and then it's Trey McBride. And he was playing behind Zach Ertz for over a year and a half until Ertz had an injury. So I'm not giving up on Sinnott. Now, I don't think he's going to be a Trey McBride or anything of that nature, but I'm not judging him based on the fact that he's pretty much just sat his entire rookie season. One of the stars of OTAs. I think it's a nice buy low here by the Duck getting in on there. Now, he didn't buy low. I mean, we're talking 2 first-round picks, but I don't think it's just like a throwaway piece. Like, I don't look at this as just Nico Collins for 2 firsts, which some people might. I do think Sinnott has a little bit of value. And if I had to pick a winner, though, I do ultimately think, as valuable as Nico is, as great as it is to have that stalwart wide receiver 1 to base your team off of, I do think the ultimate winner here is Jimbo getting 2 first-rounders here. Because Sinnott certainly, even though the hype's real, that it could pan out whether it's real or not, I do think it's a big flyer there. But Nico, Duck in a position to make that move. He had a ton of first-round capital there. And so he pulls that off. We have 17 seconds to the draft, but I just want to show you guys the deal I did. The big piece was Josh Allen. I do love Juwan Jennings as well, but obviously the biggest, most expensive piece in all of Dynasty, I gave up 2 first-rounders. Zay Flowers, pretty much a first-rounder himself right there. Ricky Pearsall and Braylon Allen. So a lot of young talent there. But my team needed a quarterback bad. I have Drake May, and then it's like, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones. I saw a chance to pounce on a team that was ready to sell. And here we go. We are off and running with the draft. Keegs, the first pick of the draft here. We shouldn't be too surprised. It's got to be Ashton Jeanty is my guess here. But no longer am I drafting in the first round because, again, that trade is this year's first, the 107, next year's first. Who knows what that will be? Hopefully a late one based on how I just loaded up the roster. I want to show you guys. I think I can show you my team here. So, yeah, Drake May, Kirk Cousins, now Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Rodgers. Clearly was in need of a viable quarterback, too. My plan was to take Cam Ward tonight with that 107 if he was to fall. I got Barkley, so I'm trying to kind of capitalize on that Barkley window. I'm hoping to load up. You see Barkley, Pollard as my running back 2 here. I'd love to tap into this very, very talented running back class, so everyone says, and hopefully land some nice young talent to beef this up. Because after those 2, which, of course, you got, maybe the best number 1 running back of this year, and in Dynasty still got some years left, but it's ugly from there. Pollard, Mitchell, Spears, those 2 in the same backfield. I don't have much depth, so I plan to load up there. Now, I do have Diggs, Hill. You can kind of see my receiver room. Deebo Samuel, old, aging. And so I saw my window. Jennings, I do think, is a nice piece to add here. A little more sure than Pearsall, even though Pearsall has that. And as predicted, Jeanty does go with the 101. But you can kind of see why Josh Allen, for this type of team with the receivers we have on this roster, makes the most sense. And I will be trying to really stack up on running backs here because I do think between Jennings, Deebo, Tyreek Hill, Diggs, I think I've got some, you got Leggett, maybe he breaks out. I got some young enough talent. Myers is solid enough. I've got the receivers I can get by with. I got Jonnu and Dalton Kincaid at the tight end position as well. Hopefully Kincaid bounces back big. Unfortunate, here to not take the step we all thought. So that's my squad there. Let's stop looking at that, though, and we can get back into the draft here. And we see it goes Jeanty, Hampton, Henderson third. Interesting, bucking the trend there. So I'd like to I might just refresh this real quick. So share draft board. I'll be posting this, of course, at Roto Street Wolf. But just make sure you can see it. So the draft goes Jeanty, Hampton, which I totally agree with. I know there's been some debate whether you go receiver there. Jimbo does take Cam Ward with that 107. I traded him, but we go Jeanty, Hampton, Henderson, surprise there at 3 by Papa Tunes in the 3-hole. McMillan goes 4th. There is that big debate, McMillan versus Travis Hunter. And, Hunter actually has the higher ADP right now on Sleeper. I do lean McMillan there. I think Hunter's the more explosive, higher ceiling prospect, but when you mix in the cornerback snaps, and it's just a bit of a risk that I don't think you need to absorb because McMillan is just a right there, same tier of wide receiver prospect, in my opinion. But he's going to be a wide receiver his whole career. We saw the way Bryce Young finished last year. I mean, he was averaging nearly 23 points per game across the last 5 weeks. Once he returned to the lineup, he averaged right around 20 points per game after he came back for Dalton and just looked reborn. And now you got his clear-cut alpha. If Adam Thielen can be a top 15 wide receiver down that stretch with him, imagine what Ted McMillan can do. So I actually do think it is McMillan over Hunter. I know that's a popular debate in the fantasy community, which one belongs at the top dog spot for wide receiver this year. For me, it is McMillan, and that's what CJ ends up going with here. I do love the Judkins pick as well. Then it goes Hunter there. Interesting first round to round this out here. We go, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm stunned that RJ Harvey falls all the way to the 12th spot here. I think that's one of the steals, so we'll get there. But Cam Ward going to the team that I got, of course, Josh Allen from, that makes sense. That's exactly what I was going to do to bolster my quarterback room, the clear-cut best quarterback in this class. I really don't get why he's falling to the 107. Usually when you have the first overall pick, that's a QB. He's a top 3 pick in super flex leagues, but guess not. And we got Caleb Johnson, who I like, but D'Lo ends up loading up, and this is the guy that won the championship last year. So D'Lo's doing some good stuff here. After whiffing on Jonathan Brooks last year, he gets both Caleb Johnson and RJ Harvey. Now, I would have taken RJ Harvey where he took Caleb Johnson. Ultimately, I would have probably taken Caleb Johnson where he took Harvey. No harm, no foul, because he got both guys. I love Harvey, though. We're talking about, handpicked by Sean Payton, the most. I have an article over at rotostreetjournal.com breaking down more so for redraft the Broncos backfield, but how valuable Sean Payton's backfields are year in and year out. 17 years of coaching, 12 times they finished in the top 2 in total fantasy points, and you're giving RJ Harvey the biggest slice for his career potentially. I absolutely love that. If this is the next Alvin Kamara, bigger, faster than Alvin Kamara, not quite the receiver, but they've already talked about how they're expanding his route tree. I think Harvey, I would have had a hard time. Yes, I was probably going to go Cam Ward with my quarterback room, but I think Harvey anywhere in these top 6, 7. I ultimately, in my last rookie draft before this, was on the 106 and had a debate between Judkins and Harvey myself. I went Judkins. Happy I did. I think he's going to be just a bell cow there for years to come. But that's how much I respect Harvey's. I think he's in that conversation similarly in that same tier as the Judkins, the Hendersons. I do not consider him a tier below. I think it's kind of Jeanty, and then you got the Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, Harvey. Maybe Johnson tabs on to the bottom of that tier, but I don't know. I think he's kind of the start of the next tier with the Scatterbows and some of the other players there. And so we see again that round 1 wrap up. Ibuka, I just don't know about that this early when you're this buried. I am up. I'm going to kind of, I've got 2 minutes to go. I know who I wanted was Bashal Tutin. He ended up going. I know my plan is to load up on running backs, but I am a huge Trey Harris fan. Love the landing spot. Love that he, 5 yards per route run against man coverage, an elite man beater with Justin Herbert. You got Lad McConkey. I think those two could be a deadly duo, and I can just I've got another, the 3-7, the 4-7, and then I did trade away the 4-11 actually as part of that. So I'd only have 2 more stabs at running back. This is a tricky one. It's a matter of in Dynasty, do you go for the talent? Typically receivers preserve their value longer. I'm telling you, though, I really think Jadon Blue, I love him in redraft. I'm a huge fan of how it sets up for him to be that lead back for the Cowboys. I think they run outside zone at a very high clip, and he was nearly 7 yards per carry on the outside zone. So to me, it's between Trey Harris and Blue. I think Harris might be too good to pass up, but my gut is still saying Blue. Oh, man, these are 2 players I absolutely love. Oh, man. Blue is more so the potential to be a 1-year wonder. They come in with a big running back next year, whereas Harris takes over for Quentin Johnson. I'm going to go with the running back, though. My team really sorely needs it. And I'm going to draft Jadon Blue here. As much as I love Trey Harris, I have a ton of both these guys in best ball. And, yeah, no doubt Kendall just scooping up Trey Harris right there. But, again, the first round wrapped up after Cam Ward, Caleb Johnson, Ibuka, Loveland, Burden, and Harvey. I'm surprised Burden went before Harvey. I think that's an overpay right there. And I know CJ and his boy Tanner, they are very much against old running backs, so they call them. Old 24 trade. I get it, but I think Harvey's going to be a stud for years and years to come, and Burden very well could be too. But ultimately, already the hamstring thing's flaring up, so I think Ibuka was a little bit of reach. Sure, Mike Evans is probably gone within the next couple of years, and he's an absolute stud. This is Dynasty. I understand it. Supremely talented, the most targeted guy in camp apparently. Early OTAs. Still the Loveland over Harvey. Burden over Harvey, Ibuka over Harvey. I think that's going to end up being a mistake, in my own personal opinion there. And so ultimately, we then go to round 2, and we see Cam Scatterbo, Matthew Golden, and then Ty Warren falling all the way to the 203. And as Christopher Jason says here, Warren falling to respect. I get it. Might have to fire GM after the Tet Luther start. Puke. So, yeah, CJ's not in charge of this one. He's not a huge fan of that. I know he has Travis Hunter above Tet McMillan. I do like Tet over Hunter, though. I think that was the right play. I do think Burden over Harvey is a very questionable move. Burden over, some of these other guys, too, maybe even Golden. I prefer. But we shall see how this ends up playing out. Round 2 then going, though, for anybody listening to the audio, Cam Scatterbo, Matthew Golden, Ty Warren, Jaden Higgins, Jackson Dart, I think is going to end up being kind of like that Bo Nix last year where he falls into round 2. I love the cannon arm. I love the mobility. I love Ryan Dayball. What if he ends up starting all year? So I really do like, what Jimbo did is kind of what I was planning to do if I did not get Josh Allen tonight. I was planning to go Cam Ward. I was hoping Jackson Dart might make his way to me. I really wanted Bashal too, and he absolutely sniped him from me, but I am intrigued by Blue. Maybe I'll end up kicking myself for prioritizing team need over long-term value over the guys that might sustain it longer. I do love Trey Harris. I don't know. I'm already kind of second guessing that one myself, but I really think Blue, even if they have somebody new come in next year, what if he shows elite pass catch, so explosive? I'm a fan of him. And then Io Manor, so it goes Milrow, which another one of those ones that I sneaky love. When you get those quarterbacks in a super flex and you can kind of rack them up here, you see how often they pan out and end up preserving value there. Milrow, Konami code, not a huge fan of the prospect at all, but I do think it's well worth the stab, especially for Kendall, who already got Egbuka, Harris, nice haul at the skill positions to then go in on Milrow. You look at Io Manor. We talked about him on yesterday's show, our favorite sleepers of the year. He was typically going around 3, but man, we both loved him. So is that a little early? Sure. I would have preferred Kyle Williams myself, maybe even some of these running backs. But a guy that can hang 300 on Travis Hunter, the second overall pick, I'm all about it. I'm intrigued to see what this guy does at the NFL level for sure. But I think Kyle Williams, so if I was going to pick out my favorite picks so far, round 1, I think RJ Harvey falling all the way to the end is the best pick. I love it. I can only say good things about that. I think, taking Burden, Loveland, and Egbuka over him is going to look silly. I even think Caleb Johnson should have gone after Harvey, but, the same team got both those guys. So well done, D'Lo, the champion. Rich gets richer. My goodness, that team is stacked. I love Kyle Williams, though, the second to last pick of round 2 there going to the Duck. I think that is the best pick. Higgins, very intriguing there for CJ at the 2-4 spot. Just so athletic for his size. He good with the ball in his hand as well. And now we get into round 3. So we see the quarterback for the Saints, Tyler Shuck, go. Then Mason Taylor. Love that value there for Jimbo Slice. Noel going at the 3-3. Dylan Sampson, the 3-4. Pat Bryant, who was kind of my sneaky hope for the 3-5. I was hoping he'd follow 3-7. He does not. He goes to CJ. Love Pat Bryant, other guy we talked about on the Sleeper Show. And then Terrence Ferguson, another guy I really, really like, going there at the 3-6. So that leaves me with not a ton that I love. I do think Devin Neal landed in a very interesting spot. The draft capital wasn't there, but I love the player coming in. Only an aging Alvin Kamara ahead of him. And Kendre Miller, I think, is trash. Cam Akers signed. Oh, no. So I love Devin Neal. I love Elijah Arroyo. I have Kincaid already, which I don't know how great that is. I have Jonnu as long as he stays with the Dolphins. I think I can kind of hold off on tight end at this point. And like I said, my plan was to come in and load up on running backs, and I needed to restock the cabinet here. So I'm going to go with Devin Neal and just hope, whether it's an injury to Alvin Kamara or whether they kind of, we got Kellen Moore coming in. He loves to pound the rock, run some of the most plays every single season. He has a fast-paced offense, loves to pound the ball. If something happens to Kamara, I think Devin Neal's the next man up. So he's a guy I've taken in the 3rd round of pretty much every rookie draft, and I think the stock has gone down just a little bit lately, but I don't think Cam Akers is a good enough reason. Now, there's a ton of other running backs I love. I'll definitely be hitting the waiver wire hard. And if you, again, watch the Sleeper Show from yesterday, I talked about a ton of the ones I like. I don't want to give away too many of them quite yet. But, yeah, so Devin Neal goes right after Ferguson. So 3-6 Ferguson. I pick Devin Neal there at the 3-7. Again, why couldn't this guy gone? I know I took Blue for the Cowboys. Devin Neal goes to the Cowboys, the Chiefs, any of those teams, and we would have been talking about him in round 2. I think the talent is there. I think the opportunity is better than people are realizing. So I am a big, big fan of Devin Neal there as well. We got 150 with us live. Love to see it. Thank you so much. Please do feel free to ask any questions, anything you see here that seems off. Let me know. Would be happy to hear your commentary on the draft, whether you're live here or catching the replay and adding comments. Would love it. But if you do enjoy it, please hit that thumbs up button as well, as we are burning through this. Jarquez Hunter going to Dane there at right after Devin Neal. He's a guy I certainly considered. You got Sean McVay. Something I'm starting to do more and more in Dynasty is kind of betting on coaches. You got the offensive minds that you just want to follow. And if they peg these rookies, Sean McVay says, I couldn't leave the draft without this guy. He was clearly my number one target of entering day 3. Those are the guys I'm really betting on. Bayshall Tootin, for example, the one I really wanted to fall to me. I love Liam Cohen, so Travis Hunter as well. Jimbo Slice kind of loading up on that Jaguars trend. I do think it's worthwhile to start making these bets on offensive play callers and head coaches or offensive coordinators that can peg these guys for the right role. Of course, betting on Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, that makes sense. But really, I've been kind of focusing more and more strategy around coaches. And maybe that can kill me if Liam Cohen flops to Duval, and maybe he's just not that great. But you see the way he squeezed even more out of Baker Mayfield, crushed it in the college level, was groomed under McVay. And even when they had injuries, Chris Godwin gets hurt. All right, no problem. Cade Otton come to the plate. And all these weapons that they just really schemed well for everybody. And I do love Jordan James. He's a guy I talked about yesterday that I've been taking in round 4 of most rookie drafts. No problem with him going here in round 3. Got an aging Christian McCaffrey and a guy in Jordan James who was one of the top 5 running backs in yards per carry and outside zone, going to the 49ers rush scheme that absolutely feasts on the outside zone runs. 73% of their runs were zone, 53% of them were outside zone, and that's what Jordan James does the best. So huge fan of him. If this is, yet another injury-ridden year for CMC, yeah, Gurendo's there, sure. Speedy guy that had a couple decent games with him out, but I just didn't think he looked great. I think it was more of a talk about betting on scheme, betting on talent. Obviously, a very easy one is Kyle Shanahan to bet on, and especially specifically for the running game. Love that zone blocking scheme, groomed and raised under Kubiak there. And Jordan James is a perfect seamless fit. Guy forced a committee with Bucky Irving. So I love Jordan James. In fact, I have him above Hunter. So, Dane doing well to get both those guys, 2 of my favorite running backs for later in drafts. I have a few more pegged. Hopefully that make it 2, 4, 7 that I talked about on yesterday's show as well. We then get Shedeur Sanders, Brown Homer pick there. But no, I get it. This is the stage of the draft, late 3rd. If Sanders hits, he's going to be a big hit. And so I don't mind that pick at all for Dane. And, it's a lot of competition. You got Flacco. It's a lot of kind of gross competition. Maybe it's Dylan Gabriel who ends up in there, who I do think is actually a little underappreciated right now, going at the tail end of drafts. He was the one they actually took a round before Shedeur. So we shall see how that ends up playing out. But again, round 3 going Shuck, Taylor, Mason Taylor, that is the tight end. Love that pick. Jalen Noel, who is even better than Higgins. A lot of people, Dane Brugler, for example, had Noel above Higgins. I think Higgins brings more flexibility, probably a clear-cut starter from day one because he plays outside, can kick it to the spot, whereas Noel will likely need an injury there to Kirk or to outplay him a little bit later. CJ making his pick, ticking down, time's up, and ends up getting auto-drafted. I don't know. With time's up, do we assign it or no? It'll give him someone, I'm sure, at some point. Let me just refresh this. I don't know what to do with that. So we'll just keep recapping this as well. Samson goes to the 3-4. Love the player. It's definitely a stuck situation right now, but man, he's another one that I wish had just ended in there's so many wide open spots for backs. Love the Pat Bryant pick here. Phenomenal there, 3-5. Ferguson, 3-6. Neal, 3-7. Hunter, 3-8. James, 3-9. Sanders, 3-10. And we have paused because this time's up. So I don't know what's going on with that. So while we wait there, let's see. Somehow he gets Gadsden out of this. The pause button there. I don't know what's going on there. And then we continue forward. So I would have liked Gadsden in round 4. We talked about him on the Street per Slim as well. Now, a couple picks that I've highlighted, just kind of who's gone. And the draft has been paused. So let's take a quick breather here. I'm going to grab my water. And so, somebody I loved coming in, but I'm starting to have the second guesses of is Jack Beck over there going at the end of round 2. And yet you look at this team, Jacoby Myers, very overlapping skill set there. And then ultimately, already running behind Donta Thornton, who is not picked at this point. I'd rather take the round 4 pick if I'm going to go there. Geno, a great deep ball thrower. I do love Beckley. He's got that kind of knack for getting open, and you'll have those Cooper Kupp comparisons for the way he can work the intermediate layers of the field, and ultimately how he just finds those soft spots and is great after the catch. I really love the game he brings, but it's just redundant to Bowers, to Myers. That's not a guy that I am finding myself landing in any rookie drafts. Again, my biggest question, and I'm intrigued to know what the chat thinks, is I went blue over Trey Harris. My receivers are far more set. You can kind of, again, see my team here where I've got only Barkley, Pollard, Mostert, yay. So really just Barkley, Pollard as useful running backs, Spears if something happens to Pollard, and Keaton Mitchell. So I needed running backs. My plan was to come out of this draft with 3 running backs. I do not expect Trey Harris to be there, but I've got already Tyreek, Debo, Juwan Jennings, and then Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk. So I've got plenty of guys, Xavier Legette, if he ends up panning out, that I can end up tossing in there, Alec Pierce. And so for me, I know Dynasty, you shouldn't usually draft for team need. But ultimately, I feel like the running back, I love the prospect in blue, the 4.29 speed at the pro day, the just dominance in the outside zone scheme that the Cowboys run at the 5th highest clip in the league. I'm a huge blue fan. I love Trey Harris too, as we mentioned, yards per route run against man, top in the class, top in the last decade. The guy's a stud at Ole Miss. You saw when Dart didn't have him, how Dart just crumbled. But injury prone. What if Quentin Johnson does just keep ascending like they keep saying he is? I don't buy that, but what if he does? So it's not like Harris is completely clean. I was considering Milroe, but now that I do have Josh Allen and Drake May, I'm pretty set at quarterback. I didn't need to take any of these plunges. Arroyo falling to the 312. I love that value. I think it was an auto pick. What are we doing here, boys? Getting into the draft, making us look like schmucks here. But I love Arroyo falling there. Freak athlete at Miami. Couldn't stay healthy very consistently, but I'm a huge fan of that for sure. So too bad, because I would have loved Arroyo to fall. We should have given El Padrino just garbage on there. And now kind of the quarterback stabs, the Will Howards, Dylan Gabriels, we see those starting to fly off the board. I've got a few running backs in mind that I'd love to land here. We'll see which ones end up falling. And then, I ended up pulling off, the 3 running backs in one of the best running back classes to come into the league in a long, long time. But we got Will Howard, so going around 4 here. 4-1 is Will Howard. 4-2, Dylan Gabriel. 4-3, DJ Giddens, big fan of him. I know it's a pure kind of handcuff bet with Jonathan Taylor there, but a very good handcuff. Should something happen to Taylor, he's missed time in all the past 4 seasons. So I think Giddens will make some starts. There's really no one he's contending with for that number 2 role. I was stunned that the Cowboys, that's part of why I took blue here. The Cowboys took blue over Giddens, who, was much clearer of a 3-down back profile, in my opinion, was Giddens. He had history with their new line coach over at Kansas State. Was the offensive coordinator there for Giddens, loved him. It seemed to me like Giddens was going to slide right to the Cowboys and be a beautiful, perfect fit. Didn't end up happening. Ended up being Blue, who's a smaller, seems like a scat bat profile, but all the guy does is score touchdowns. So again, I keep coming back to my pick of Blue. Would have loved it to be Bayshall Tootin, 2 of my highest owned 2025 best ball guys right here, Blue and Tootin, going like the 120 to 135 range. I always go, back to back those 2. In my 0 running back builds, I think it's a cheat code to be able to get that type of speed in these explosive offenses. I think is a phenomenal play. So we get Giddens going there to Indy, and then now we got Zenos here on the clock. For the last, we're going to kind of wrap up round 4 here, and we'll do the ultimate recap. But as we're overlooking the board, just to reemphasize, I think Harvey falling all the way to the end of round 1 was one of the best steals of this draft. I can't imagine going Loveland, Igbuka, or Burden over him, and even Caleb Johnson. I don't think I would have pulled that trigger. I would have got Harvey all the way here at 8 and maybe even 7. I do think it's kind of clear, and maybe this is already established here. Once the top 6 are gone, it does seem like a very clear tier. Then Cam Ward, if anybody's quarterback needy, they want to buy that 1-7. It's a kind of a nice piece to dangle. And Jimbo Slice was quarterback needy. He had no one other than Josh Allen, so that's where I loaded up a bunch of firsts, send them over to him along with Zay Flowers, kind of kicking off the draft here with a blockbuster trade. And yeah, so then we have Harold Fannin, Ollie Gordon going at the 4-4, 4-5. I'm a big fan of Fannin. If he was like a wide receiver prospect, he might have been the best, top 5 wide receivers in this pretty lackluster class. Unbelievable yards per out run. The fact that he put up those numbers as a tight end, sure, I get the competition was like Bowling Green. Is that where he played? Like, yeah, Bowling Green. I understand. Nothing overly special there. But Njoku, there's trade rumors. If they end up taking maybe mid-season, he ends up getting moved, and suddenly you got Harold Fannin as the tight end of the future there. I like the pick. I think that's a very solid one. I've got my eye on 2 running backs here, and so I'm going to get one of them. We'll see which ones end up falling to me. But there's still, Jalen Royals there with what if Rashee Rice ends up having another injury? He could really I love Royals. I thought he was one of the better wide receiver prospects of this class. And sure, he's in a crowded depth chart. That's a very interesting pick right here as well. Torrey Horton brings some size and speed there to a Kubiak scheme that needs a field stretcher. So there's definitely still some talent that falls here in round 4. But I definitely have my eyes on running backs. And I'll talk about a few of them once Zenos does make his pick. Don't want to give away who I would most like to land here. But there's still a few sleepers from yesterday's show that landed. And ultimately, you can see, all right, so Zenos looking like he might time out. A few of my other, I think Tyler Warren there, falling to the 2-3, great value, especially if Daniel Jones is looking like the likely starter here. Quinn Ewers, interesting quarterback, to what the injury concerns. I actually kind of like that one. That's one has been not much on my radar, and I'm a fan of that pick. Now, the one I love here is Brashard Smith. Also a big fan of Kyle Monangai, potentially playing that Jamal Williams, David Montgomery, 17, 13, 12 touchdown style role there for the Bears. I'm going to go Brashard Smith, though. I think he's Jerick McKinnon 2.0, 4.39 speed, converted wide receiver to the running back position. Scores 18 touchdowns in his first year as a running back. Looks phenomenal doing it, nearly 6 yards a pop. I'm a huge fan for Brashard Smith. Absolutely love him. And I almost kind of sneaky like him more than Neal. I just had a feeling that Smith had a better shot to make it to me. So big fan of Brashard Smith. Pumped he fell to me. Everybody that's a long-term Roto Street Journal viewer knows my love for Jerick McKinnon has no bounds. And ultimately, I think we might have the second coming of him. Cut a 50-yard wheel route touchdown from Pat Mahomes the other day. Trevor Etienne, not a bad stab there. Yeah, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, of course, number 1, but Etienne only battling with Dowdle there, or even potentially a standalone role. Great pass catcher, explosive speed. Another one of those instances where, like, I betting on coordinators, I like what I've seen out of Dave Canales, whether it was with the Bucs or now the way he kind of turned it around for Bryce Young, what he did for Geno Smith in Seattle. I really like betting on Dave Canales as another one of those. Maybe that's like a whole separate pause. Like, what offenses am I trying to make like long-term bets on? But I like the Panthers situation there under Dave Canales for sure. Woody Marks going. You took a hit with Chubb there, but Chubb's got another year, 2 at most. So Woody Marks, an intriguing pass-catching talent. And then there goes Monangai, one of my favorites. Donta Thornton, the potential starting X-receiver, 6'5". We talked about him at length on our sleeper show. Love that pick for Puppatoons. He again very well could be playing well ahead of Jack Besh and brings just insane elite athleticism. I believe it was Chip Kelly came out the other day and just said, like, if this is how you would build an X receiver. And so I'll take him at his word, and I expect him to be stretching the field and looking great doing so. So then there goes Manungai. We got our last pick here. The only guy, who's left that I like Taj Brooks. I like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Like I'm kind of, queuing up my waiver wires right now. I think LaQuint Allen is an intriguing pick as well. So we got, I think it's one more pick here for El Padrino. And Damian Martinez, the guy we highlighted, like you might need a little more patience for, but ultimately could bring a ton of upside to the table as early as next year when Kenneth Walker is going to be a free agent next year if the team ends up moving off of him. We're talking about a guy as a freshman ran for 975 yards. The list is very short as a true 18-year-old freshman in the Power 5. We're talking I forget the exact names, but we said it on the Sleeper Show. It's like Adrian Peterson, Herschel Walker, like a really exclusive list. So in terms of who I'm going to be looking for on the waiver wires, though, I love Jalen Royals. Like he should have been drafted, no doubt. Like Taj Brooks a lot. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is a good one. Ty Felton, another one. Xavier Restrepo, very heavily targeted by Cam Ward in early OTAs. They got that Miami connection. Still having Torrey Horton, a very interesting piece. Savion Williams, after the catch. There's a lot of intriguing rookies that are still going to be out there. Maybe even Gunnar Helm if you needed a tight end prospect there, although I think Chip is really starting to flash. But all these top names here, Royals in particular, I would say Royals, Taj Brooks, Ja'Cory Merritt, and Ty Felton are the four that really catch my eye. Damian Martinez also being out there. So waivers should be fun. Waivers should be interesting. Opening up, we'll get going very quickly. So we shall see how that all plans out. But Wolfpack, that is our 2025 rookie draft. Tanner, you did end up making it. I had the wrong.
How are we doing?
So I was about to jump off, but hey, if you want to give a couple rapid thoughts in terms
I was just thinking my quick thoughts. So
give your quick thoughts.
I was CJ here. I was CJ 12. I took over his. I've been GMing his team since last year. He was in the dump, and now we're slowly crawling out. I think we might be a playoff team this year. But yeah, I went full wide receivers because we got Bijan and Akan, and we're loaded at quarterback and have Bowers. Excuse me. But yeah, Tet 104. That was a no-brainer for me. A lot of talk about Travis Hunter being the wide receiver 1 in this class. I truly don't see it. I like him as a prospect. It's not that I don't think he's an elite prospect, but it's simple. He is behind Brian Thomas Jr., and Tet will have all the opportunity in the world. And we know Tet is, in my opinion, I think he's the better receiving product. So that is, for me to get my wide receiver 1 and 2 pre and post draft, I was pretty excited about. So got Gadsden, Bryant, all the guys from yesterday.
Oh yeah, the Sleeper Show really representing
what we preach over here.
Absolutely. And so you were saying you're 1 and 2. So you got McMillan, and who would you consider the number 2?
So yeah, I'd say Burden is. I had Burden at 1 pre-draft, but obviously fall in the draft, I can't do that. I had to put him at 2, and with the landing spot, obviously he's in a loaded offense. But yeah, I am super optimistic for Burden. I think he fits Ben Johnson's play calling style perfectly. And, there's been a lot of talk about Burden being the Amon-Ra St. Brown, per se, of the Bears offense. And I'm not too high on Rome Odunze myself. So I do see a role for him to grow. And, by the end of his rookie contract, DJ Moore is going to be, 33, 32.
Yeah.
So I would put a bet on either Burden or Loveland being the alpha in that offense. I am super high on Loveland too. So, but obviously this not being tight end plus, I'm not super down to miss out on Loveland there because I have Bowers. But I love Loveland, love Burden, love both those guys.
I think it's kind of crazy that Harvey fell below all 3 of those guys. I know you're not as high on Harvey.
I love it. I love to see it.
I think it's nuts that he fell all the way to the 112.
I think it's nuts. Scatabo 201. That's nuts.
I love Scatabo, but that is a little early for him. I agree.
over Scatabo when Jaden Higgins, Jackson Dart are on the board. I'd even take Trey Harris over Cam Scatabo. I'd take Ayamanor over Cam Scatabo. I know you like Trey Harris a lot.
I do, and so this actually was my toughest decision. I want you to weigh on this one before I get out of here. Was I had the choice of Trey Harris here at 2.7. I ultimately have no running backs.
Oh no!
And I know it's such that old dynasty debate of like, do you go with team need or do you go with like the players you love and just like kind of take the value? And I know Trey Harris was clearly like the smart pick, but I think Jaden Blue is so undervalued. I think he's going to be starting running back for the Cowboys all year, show that he has that ability to potentially be at worst a committee member for his career, if not like a pseudo, trying to think of those speedy backs that just like, I was going to say Jamal Charles, but obviously not Jamal Charles. Like he's not going to be that level, but we've seen it. The NFL is switching to these smaller backs that get the lead roles. And I need a running back so bad that is high. I'm so high on Blue. I'm higher on Harris, but with my team, I don't know. Lambast me. Tell me why that's a horrible dynasty move for everybody to learn.
Personally, I am not high on Jaden Blue. He's 5'9", 196. He comes out more of a receiving back, a passing downs back. Phil Maffa wasn't he did he go undrafted?
Yeah, he didn't get picked in this one.
Okay, correct. Well, no, I know he didn't get picked here, but
well, he went around 5 or 6, I want to say, in the NFL draft. They did draft him, yeah.
Yeah, he shouldn't be picked in rookie drafts either, but he profiles more as your early down back. He's like 235 pounds. But so Jaden Blue, I can see contributing on passing downs. I don't see him being like the RB1
over Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders.
I know it's a horrible cast.
It's a horror. That's what I'm saying. He's going to get the crack this year. And whether he actually proves that he should be a lead back or not, we'll find out for the future, for Dynasty or whatnot. But I think he's going to be the starter this year, and I expect him to thrive. There's a lot I love about him.
You think he's going to be the starter? I don't know. I don't know about this year, because they did, like, as much as I hate both those guys, Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, they did bring in Javonte, and I think they might think he has a shred of upside. We all know he doesn't.
He doesn't. No, the metrics are horrendous on him. And you look at like Devin, like Neal was there, Giddens was there. They had all these guys that could have been feature backs. I would have loved to land there. They prioritized Blue though, so they must have loved this kid, the Texas boy, staying in his hometown. I don't know. I love the narrative.
Here's my kind of like why I don't like this is because pre-draft, I mean, I had Devin, Neal, Giddens, Gordon over all of these backs that I'm seeing going after 112. And because of landing spots, like Jaden Blue gets the Cowboys, we probably wouldn't even think about him if he got Damian Martinez's landing spot with the Seattle Seahawks. Not at all. That's the thing. It's like I feel like a lot of these guys are being inflated and deflated due to landing spots. And to be honest, I think that talent matters more, and talent usually does persevere over situation. But for running backs, opportunity is obviously a little more important. We know that. So that's why we're seeing a lot of inflation. But it's crazy to me to see like Devin, Neal, Giddens, and Gordon go after those guys. I still, even with their landing spots, I'm still taking all of Neal, Gordon, and Giddens all over those guys.
Okay, fair enough.
Gordon could literally be Raheem, be put in the Raheem Mostert role and get goal line carries. And Gordon has a very high handcuff role. Giddens has a very high handcuff role. Jonathan Taylor has, we know he gets banged up pretty much every year. With Devin Neal, Kamara is really old, and who's the other guy? Kendre Miller.
Cam Akers as well. Ugh.
Oh, God. Those guys are just headaches. So, Neal's actually got a lot of opportunity ahead of him or chance to produce, once Kamara's out of the picture.
I agree, by the way.
But
I took Neal, so I like that. I took Neal.
Even Kamara hasn't been particularly efficient himself. So, we're definitely seeing some decline on Kamara's production.
Sure. Did you go Gadsden round 3 just because you knew I wouldn't let him get to you in round 4?
Absolutely, I did. I got CJ texting me. He's like, "This is an abomination. 4 wide receivers. God, he's like, dude, just take a running back." I'm like, no, I'm taking
the running back class of all running back classes, and you dip into it 0 times.
Yeah. This is my first Jaden Higgins share. I do really like Jaden Higgins.
Yeah, I do too.
I had Jaden Higgins as my wide receiver 6 in this class, right behind him, Egbuka.
Mm-hmm.
So I do really like Jaden Higgins. He was top 5 in receiving yards per team, pass attempt, and market share out of this class. So I think Dell, in my opinion, is cooked. Tank Dell. And he's a lot smaller. We know he's 5'9", 165. Jaden Higgins is 6'4". So you're getting almost essentially another, they're going to have another Nico on the opposite side. Not exactly Nico Collins, but the same body type. And I think he can produce in that Tank Dell role easily. So
absolutely. We just need Stroud to get back to, were we getting rookie year Stroud or were we getting last year's Stroud? I think the new play caller, Rams inspired scheme will help out a ton. He's talking about a lot of pre-snap control that he didn't have last year's scheme. So I do think we get a better offense overall. I like Higgins a lot. I think that was a nice value there for you at the 2-4 for sure.
I'm not too high on Stroud, but I think, the system works and he gets carried by his wide receivers, so it's okay.
Yeah. Nice. Well, is there? I do got to get running in a sec. But is there any other last 1 or 2 picks you wanted to highlight?
No, I think that's it. I'm glad I got Pat Bryan and Gadsden in round 3. Those are guys I have at least round 2 grades on. So
nice.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, Wolfpack, let us know in the comments what you think of this. We'll have all our, rookie rankings, dynasty content at rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Thanks so much for being here. On your way out, if you enjoyed what you heard, thumbs up button does help us grow and continue to get out to more people. The likes, the subs. Thank you again so much. In a world full of fantasy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Later.
Later, guys.